Hello, everyone. Welcome. Come on in, grab a seat, maybe a cool beverage. And thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining us for another iBoost Talent Bonfire Q&A. We call it these because we literally do meet around the fire on Discovery Day weekend, which is very exciting. Quite transformational, personally and professionally. So this session today is for entrepreneurial spirited leaders. Like or comment if that's you, thumbs up, heart it, who've considered business ownership, but don't really know how to step into that space, right? Maybe you think you can't afford it. You're not sure where to start. Today's conversation is going to change your perspective, help you ask the question, see that where there's a will, there's a way. And we truly believe at iBoost Talent that when we align with the right people at the right time, we can unlock success, right? So if you agree with that, just let me know you're here, like it, drop a comment, and ask your questions as we go. I don't like to save them until the end. So today we're joined by a guest speaker, an expert who's going to help us answer one of the biggest questions we hear, which is how do I fund my business? And this applies to any kind of business that you're looking at starting. Of course, we're in the staffing recruiting space. We've added robotics and workforce solutions, but we're exploring a funding strategy that can help aspiring business owners, no matter what industry you're in. You don't even realize you have available options. So we're going to discuss that today and help turn business ownership into a reality. So again, drop your comments. Let us know you're here. We'll answer the questions. I see people hopping on. Awesome. Okay. So first we have Michele Simons, who's actually in a storm right now. So hi, Michele. How are you?
Hello, good, thank you.
Good. I'm glad you're with us right now. So let's go ahead and have you introduce yourself, and knowing that you might have to jump back on, but go ahead and let us know who you are and a little bit about your background.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Michele Simons. I've been with Guidant for almost 4 years now, coming up there. And I have a financial background myself. I originally started off as a financial advisor. I majored in economics and started with back then what was Merrill Lynch. Now, of course, they got bought out by Bank of America. And then I started investing in real estate. And of course, that takes money and financing. And then I got into this where I was actually able to help people start their own businesses through a multitude of different solutions, funding solutions. And I will be talking about that today.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Storm permitting. We are so glad you're here and just really appreciate this. Let me introduce Bill really quick. Bill's been on our webinars before. Howdy, partner. How are you?
I'm well, Becca. Glad to be
Good.
a grizzled veteran here.
Absolutely. We'll just let everybody know a little bit about your background and we'll hop right in.
Sure. So I'm the VP of Franchise Development for iBoost, and in that role, my job is primarily to represent the company to prospective franchisees who are interested in business ownership and creating their own independence. Walk them through what our process looks like, what the offering is, the costs involved, the obligations involved, what you do, all those types of things, the benefits and the expertise, for lack of a better term, and support that iBoost provides to those owners. To prepare myself for that role, I have been in the staffing industry my entire life. My dad was in it. I worked for my father in a company-owned business for about 12 years or so, which also happened to be a franchise. And then I went out on my own, had a couple of startups that I've been involved in. And then one of those startups was acquired by the largest international staffing company out there. And for 28 years, I was a person in the field with that company, leading teams and growing business in all different markets around the Southeast primarily. So joined iBoost and Don and his team about a year ago or so right now, and so excited about launching this product and sharing with everybody the differences in iBoost and our offering from some of our competitors that are out there that have got credible businesses, but don't offer some of the nuance and the unique aspects and differentiators that iBoost offers.
Yeah, perfect. So we have the experts here today. So let's jump right in with the questions. Let me bring Michele back on. All right, sister.
All right.
So one of the biggest questions we hear, obviously, is I'd love to own a business, but I just can't afford it. So let's start there. Break down for us, what exactly is ROBS and who is it designed for?
Yeah, absolutely. So ROBS, first of all, stands for Rollover for Business Startups. And it is a funding strategy that allows people to use eligible retirement funds. For example, a previous 401k, 403b, TSP, or an IRA. And they can use those funds or a portion of those funds, it doesn't have to be the whole account, in their business without taking any tax implications. So if you're under 59 and a half, there's no early withdrawal penalty and there's no income taxes due. And instead of borrowing money, you are investing from your retirement savings into your own company. And that gives many entrepreneurs access to capital that they didn't know they had or wouldn't otherwise have without adding any monthly payments or interest expense.
Okay. So if anyone has questions as we jump into this, let us know. Okay, so Michele, it feels complicated, right, if people are just exploring it at first, but break it down how this process works in simple terms, por favor.
Absolutely. So the easiest way to think about it is that your retirement becomes an investor in your business, essentially a silent partner. A new corporation is formed. The retirement plan is established. A new retirement plan is established under that corporation, and your eligible retirement funds are rolled into that new plan. So that's what makes it a tax-free transfer, because it's going from one retirement account to another, never coming outside of that umbrella. And then the retirement plan purchases stock in the corporation. So instead of investing in the publicly traded market, you're investing in your own company privately. And the corporation receives those funds to operate the business. And those funds can be used for any startup costs as long as they are legitimate business expenses. And the important thing is to remember that the money belongs to the business, not to you personally. And that is why it is a legitimate, and that's why it has to be a legitimate business expense, like purchasing a franchise, buying equipment, working capital, inventory, payroll, marketing, salaries, build outs, whatever you need to do to make your business successful.
Okay, perfect. The next biggie, and we've had people ask this literally, is this legal, right? So legitimate, IRS recognizes this funding strategy.
Yes. I love this question because it shocks people oftentimes to find out that this is not a new strategy. It has been around for decades, since 1974. So it is over 50 years old. It is part of the ERISA Act, and it is within the Internal Revenue Code. It's not a new strategy. It does have very specific rules that must be followed, just like everything that the IRS allows, right? And that's why it's important to work with an experienced provider who understands the ongoing compliance requirements, can set you up correctly. And like any tax or legal strategy, it's not something you want to try and set up yourself. That said, thousands of businesses have been successfully funded using ROBS. And when it's structured correctly and maintained properly, it can be a very effective way to fund your business and also in some cases help your retirement account as well.
What's another term that people use to refer to this? Do they call it like a general rollover option, Michele?
Sometimes people will refer to it as a 401k rollover because oftentimes that's what people will be having funds come from, and it's one 401k to another 401k, but it doesn't have to initiate from a 401k.
Gotcha. Okay. So, how does this compare to taking out a traditional business loan?
Yes. So this is one of my favorite aspects of Rob's. The biggest difference is it is not debt. So there are no monthly interest payments that go back to a lender. And with a loan, you're having to make those monthly payments and paying interest regardless of how your business performs. With Rob's, it is the cheapest cost of capital outside of cash. And because it's not debt, there are no monthly loan payments because you're using your own funds instead of borrowing from a lender. And this can significantly improve cash flow during those first critical months or even years of the business. And many entrepreneurs will even combine Rob's with SBA financing because using retirement funds for a down payment can strengthen their overall financing package. And it also helps them preserve their cash. So the right solution just really depends on the person's financial situation, their risk tolerance, and their business goals.
I am learning so much right now. That feels safe to me. And I love hearing that option. Okay. Who is this ideal for, right? Like, who's your ideal candidate and who is not a good fit for this option?
Yeah. So the ideal candidate is anyone really who has the eligible retirement funds, either from a previous employer or an IRA, who wants to actively own and operate their business. There are no financing requirements that oftentimes a bank is going to look at. You don't need to have a minimum credit score. You don't even need to have income. You don't have to have a certain level of assets or a debt to income ratio that the lenders might be specifically looking for. So it's a lot simpler in those terms. And it's especially attractive for those people, again, who don't want to take on the debt and want to preserve their monthly cash flow in the business during the startup months and also preserve their own cash. On the other hand, it might not be the best fit for somebody who doesn't have eligible retirement funds. Plans to remain only a passive investor. This isn't good if you just want to sit back and not do anything with your business, or it isn't comfortable investing your retirement assets into the business venture. Every funding option has its risks, so it's important to evaluate whether it aligns with your personal financial goals. And talking to a professional can always help you determine that.
Absolutely. And that's why you're here. Awesome. I have a question here from someone. Let's see here. Can you use Rob's plan to cover your cost of living until you become profitable?
So the short answer is yes. However, you do want to be careful with that because you're essentially using retirement funds to use personally. And the IRS does not like that. So you have to document all of your efforts towards the business and making sure that there is an intent to make a profit within your business. And then that way you can take a salary if you want to pay for your living expenses. We don't necessarily recommend that in the beginning, but if it's the only way you have to get started and you are very well capitalized, it is a strategy that can work out. But using that strategy, we definitely want you to talk to a professional and go in more depth into your specific situation and see if it would be a good idea specifically for you.
And a lot of our, Michele, just so you know, a lot of our business owners, operators start from home, right? Like no brick and mortar is required. So I'm sure as part of like a write-off strategy and business startup plan, all of that would be considered, right?
Yes, definitely, for sure. Yep.
Okay, cool. Another comment we have, I love when people play with us. The number one barrier I hear from interested folks is I don't have enough cash. Having this option versus traditional financing is huge. Right?
Yes, definitely, for sure. It does help you become potentially a business owner when you thought you never would be able to otherwise.
Yeah. I love curveballs, Michele. That's one thing you'll learn about me. In your professional experience, how many people use just Rob's or how many people use like SBA and both, like a dual financing option?
So that's a good question. And it really just depends upon two things. One, the personal preferences of the individual, and two, what is the person eligible for? So if somebody has the option to do their business with 100% ROBS and combine it with an SBA, that becomes personal preference. Do they want to take on both debt and ROBS, or do they just want to take on ROBS? Most people who have the ability to use ROBS will use ROBS at least a portion in some manner, because it does allow additional benefits for the retirement account, and it also does allow them to be essentially operating debt-free. So that's always nice too. Cheaper cost of startup.
Absolutely.
So it just depends.
Makes sense. All right. What's the biggest misconception people have about this financing option?
So the biggest misconception, and I spoke to a gentleman this morning about this, is that they think that they're actually cashing out their retirement account. They are not. So their money is still in a qualified retirement plan. And the difference that is, instead of being invested in mutual funds or stocks in the publicly traded market, it's invested in stock of their own business. So as their business grows, so does the value of their retirement account. And the good thing is, if eventually the exit strategy is to sell your business, then the portion that is owned by the retirement account, though that sale, those proceeds go back into the retirement account completely capital gains tax free. So that could be a huge strategy to bolster your retirement plan as well. And of course, save on taxes. More goes into your pocket than Uncle Sam's pocket.
Huge benefit. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, final question until we have other questions, and we'll bring Bill on. But what's the one thing you wish every aspiring business owner knew before ruling themselves out because of funding?
So I'd really encourage them to talk to a professional and just don't assume they can't become a business owner. I've spoke with people who had low credit scores and were not able to get funding, but yet they were able to access retirement funds and their dreams were made possible. So just speak with somebody. It's not only going to a bank and having to write a huge check from your savings account. There's often multiple funding strategies available. And we've worked with people who initially thought ownership wasn't possible until they've learned about options like ROBS and the SBA, even portfolio lending or a hybrid of funding solutions. So my biggest point of content would be talk to a professional before you make that decision yourself.
Absolutely. And you are one of those professionals that they can connect with and talk with at Guidant Financial. So I'm really grateful that you're here to offer this, because it's like there's hope, right? Like so many people are so passionate about what they do and they want to take a step forward, but they don't know where to start. So
exactly.
Yes, we're very clear about that. We define the expectations clearly, which is what we're going to do with Bill now that Michele has shown us how business owners can be funded, as long as you're willing to look at what's your reality. So thank you. I love that perspective, and you're such a valuable resource, Michele. Stay with us because I'll bring you back on as we have more questions. So Bill Tassio, sir, as your own startups in your professional life, what route did you go? If I may ask a personal question, did you use a business loan? Did you tap into this option?
No, in both cases, we bootstrapped it, which I have to say was incredibly difficult, particularly in our first go around. It was the late 80s. Some folks may remember fondly, we were just coming off of some 14% mortgage rates and stuff like that. Money was in tight supply. So we used our own capital, Visa cards, stuff like that. I was a 28-year-old idiot, for lack of a better term. My one asset was a leased Ford Mustang, so I really didn't even own that. It was property.
That's so awesome.
Motor credit. So we bootstrapped it, and we did eventually get a $50,000 line of credit through a bank this was in Jacksonville, Florida, to help us with our internal payroll. But it was tough goes.
Yeah. I celebrate you for that. I really do, because you were ready to do it and you made a way. So you made it happen. Did you have a partner who provided any funding as well?
He was in the same boat I was.
Okay, so you
More
did it together.
enthusiasm than cash, um, and together we had enough to lease some space and stuff like that that we needed in those days. Everything was either free or really expensive.
Yeah.
There was no $600 computers at Costco. You bought a computer over the internet from Gateway or a Compaq or somebody like that, and it was $2,500 for a computer and a monitor, those types of things. But then a lot
Yeah.
of other things were very inexpensive. So it
Right.
leveled out, and we ended up selling about 24 months later and eked a small gain out of it, those kinds of things. But we learned a extremely valuable lesson about cash flow, which is
Mm.
one of the advantages that iBoost brings to the table. That's not a problem for our owners.
That's right. And we have proof. So we have launched a couple franchises now. As people know, iBoost Talent started on July 4th of 2025. And we're very excited to be awarding franchise opportunities in the Southeast regions
Mhm.
where workforce is booming.
Yeah.
And we've added robotics and workforce solutions to staffing and recruiting. So, Bill, tell the visitors here today what makes iBoost Talent different from traditional staffing franchises?
Sure. I think the biggest thing to mention is that iBoost was conceived and built from the ground up as a franchise that happens to be in the staffing business. Many of our competitors are corporate models that they've adapted to the franchise model, and so as a result, they tend to have uh, more fees and some higher costs and stuff like that that are associated with them, requirements around things like office space and signage and the expenses that go with those, staff requirements, all those kinds of things. iBoost eliminates many of those. We call our model franchisee first. And the whole idea behind that is, how do we get an owner from zero to cash flow positive as quickly as possible, at as little out of pocket cost as possible? And so that starts with our franchise fee, which is at $40,000, a little bit lower than some of our competitors. It includes all the technology and things like that that you need to start with. We don't have, as I mentioned earlier, any requirements around physical office space or something like that. In the staffing business, at some point you will want office space. It's not a business that, as you grow, lends itself to working out of your house indefinitely. But for the first 6 to 9 months or something like that, while you're pedaling hard and building revenue streams, you want to minimize those extraneous expenses, and certainly working from home or in a small on-demand kind of a place like Regis or WeWork or something like that can be super effective and cost effective for the owner. So the model, I think, is the biggest thing that adds the differentiator to it. And one of the things, I'll expand on that a little bit, is when an owner starts with iBoost, the first question everybody asks is, who brings in the business, right? Where does the business come from? And in every franchise staffing model, the owner and the owner's team is responsible for business development, bringing in the local business. iBoost adds a component to that, which we call the Boost Up program. And the Boost Up program is business that we already have in one of our sister companies, which is called Impact Workforce Solutions, around the country, that have those customers have open requirements from us. We share those open requirements with our franchise owners immediately upon opening and give them the opportunity to start recruiting and submitting candidates for those orders. When our Raleigh, North Carolina office opened early this year, late last year, I guess, really, they started out immediately with the Boost Up program and went right to work on submitting candidates to that, and eventually had double-digit people working and generating revenue that was shared back to them then immediately. So while the recruiters were in the office working on those positions and filling those, the owner and the owner's team was able to be out in the marketplace, building the relationships for iBoost in the Raleigh market, so that eventually, as they filled those orders with impact, their own business then started to come online too and feed that locally, that local revenue stream, and got them up and off the training wheels, I guess you would say, in a very, very short period of
I
time.
want to piggyback on that real quick too, because like 30 to 60 days, these guys were running. They hit the ground running, and they are a great duo with Chip Thomas as kind of like the frontline sales leader, right?
Yep.
And he's focused his time on building relationships because we're taking care of the busy work for him. And then his partner, Will Ulmer, is the recruiter. So
Right.
he does the recruiting, and together it's such a harmonious relationship, and I love watching their dynamic and support each other. So 6 months in, they're already hiring internally.
Yeah. Yeah. You know,
Yeah.
the staffing business, it has a lot of moving parts, but it's a very simple business at its core. It's a supply and demand model. The owner or the salesperson, whomever that person may be, is tasked with creating the demand out in the community, talking to the customers. What do they need? When do they need it? For how long do they need it? What skill sets? Those types of things. They bring those requirements then back to the recruiter in the office, who creates the supply to match up with that demand. And so that's kind of the way that Chip and Will have structured their business, as you just mentioned, Becca. Chip's out on the street. He's creating the demand. Will's back at the ranch, filling the supply line with those candidates. And matching those two together then generates the revenue that helps to build that cash flow stream for the business, and eventually becomes your foundation for profitability.
That's right. And now we have Cameron and Baker in Alpharetta, Georgia. So shout out to you guys. We haven't even mentioned your name publicly. We weren't allowed to yet before we launched, but they are now in Alpharetta, Georgia. And Baker, again, frontline sales energy, building those relationships, getting the clients, and Cameron, the recruiter, filling the roles needed. Right?
So it's important to note in that conversation, you know, unlike a lot of businesses where when you open the doors, you've got to have a full staff. If you're opening a restaurant, you've got to have cooks, you've got to have wait staff, you've got to have somebody to wash dishes, all those kinds of things, a manager, maybe even a hostess or something like that. Staffing is very simple to open. It essentially takes two people, one to create supply, or one to create supply, and one to drive demand. Those two positions then expand as the business grows into additional recruiters, additional salespeople, and essentially your business scales at the rate that the business grows at.
That's right. And you're not building from scratch. That's what I love about this the most, is because people who are in their community, right, their roots are there.
Correct.
And they know people. They're building on relationships that they've been building their entire careers. So it's like they're not starting from scratch. And when you find the right partner, you find someone who else is not starting from scratch. And we're not starting from scratch. We are here to back you all the way with all the tools needed and then some, which is what Chip says he's so surprised about. He's like, I was shocked at how much was already in place, so that when I even started, he didn't have to worry about all the busy work and launch and get set up. It's ready for you.
Yeah, as I mentioned, you know, in my initial experience with a startup, we funded our own payroll. We did all of those kinds of things on our own. And the staffing business, you have to do that, is extraordinarily cash intensive. You have to pay those employees every Friday, whether you've gotten paid by your customer or not. And you haven't been paid by your customer or not because the invoice just went out the day before, right? You just got the hours in from the employee. So it's really cash intensive. In the iBoost model, we use our back office services to handle all of those things. So essentially, we create a partition, if you will, in the relationship or the transactions that occur in a business ownership situation. The franchisee is responsible for that front of the business, the storefront, so if you will, or the at-home model, the recruiter that works for them, and the efforts that are necessary to be expended to drive business and fill those orders. Once those orders get filled, we handle all the back office transactions, with the employee payroll. So that employee gets paid by us centrally using our money, not the franchise owner's money, on our tax base. So we handle the taxes and all that reporting. We manage the workers' compensation and all the insurance coverages for those employees. We provide the technology. Aviante is our front office system. If you're in staffing, that's a familiar term to you. Aviante is our front office system that's provided to our franchisees to conduct the transactions over. We manage the marketing. Becca, you've got that responsibility on your plate for both Baker and Cameron and Alpharetta, as well as Will and Chip in Raleigh, and getting them up to speed and bringing their brand along in that marketplace as well. And then all the auxiliary stuff that goes with that gets handled internally. And then finally, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention every one of our owners gets assigned a dedicated developer that becomes that owner's coach, confidant, go-to person, shoulder to cry on, whatever you need as an owner. You've got a person within iBoost who is there to back you up. And it's not just anybody, it's somebody who's been in the staffing business at least 10 to 15 years, most likely has been a business owner, and has been where you are and what you're going through right now, understands what we do, how we do it, what our differences are, those types of things. So if you need assistance on a sales call or something like that, there's a great old saying in business, 50 miles in a briefcase makes anybody an expert, right? So you can call in your developer to go with you on that sales call as your expert coming in from Atlanta, from our corporate offices in Georgia, and helping you to lend not only support and factual information, but also that second set of ears, that second set of eyes to help you understand what exactly it is the customer is saying and what they're looking for and where their obstacles are, what kind of challenges they're looking for us to help them overcome.
Absolutely. And we'll even join you. I mean, April, I think, and Vance even joined Chip and Will on a client meeting, pretty intensive. And they ask the hard questions, as they should. So it's teamwork, right? It's dream work here.
Like a lot of businesses, the action's in the field. It's not at corporate. The revenue gets generated in the field. So that's where the effort needs to be and the emphasis needs to be. And everything else is secondary, if you will. You don't need payroll if you don't have people working.
And the best leaders know that we don't succeed in isolation. We need a team. We need people who are smarter than us in their arenas, right? We all have our talents. Michele is the finance guru. You've been in franchising for a long time. I'm the marketing nerd. We have a question here before we wrap up. I know we're a little over time, but what are the hottest markets for staffing today, Bill? On the fly, let's go.
I love this question.
Yeah.
Because I'm a product of the South. I grew up in South Florida, went to school in North Florida, spent some time in Dallas, Texas, in Atlanta. Now I'm in the Florida Panhandle. I would say, if you're anywhere in the South below the Mason-Dixon line, you're in the right place. Whether it's Arizona, where you're sitting today, Florida, where I am, anywhere in between, draw a line along Interstate 10, along Interstate 20, along Interstate 35, and those are all great staffing markets. All the way over to the Atlantic coast, the Carolinas, as we've seen with Chip and Will in Raleigh, are just on fire. It's funny, Florida, Tennessee, Texas get a lot of the headlines. North Carolina is the sleeping giant, and it just continues to grow and evolve. South Carolina similarly too.
Yeah, I'm jealous of cost of living there, and it's absolutely gorgeous.
We're not adverse to markets outside of the Sun Belt, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
But we really want to know, have a business plan, talk about overcoming some of the obstacles that some of those markets present. And those obstacles are typically, they're certainly overcomable, typically the same way you overcome a lot of things with extra money, right? If you're opening up if you want to open up in San Francisco, it's a huge market. It's an expensive as all get out market too, though. So we want to talk about the funding and stuff like that. New York too, great market in terms of opportunity, incredibly competitive, and it's probably going to take a little bit longer to get from point A to point B in a market like New York, and be able to cost a little bit more money than in a market like Atlanta or Birmingham or someplace like that.
Yeah. And, people ask us all the time to pool the data in their immediate territory so we can literally show you what opportunity looks like. What does
Yeah.
growth look like?
Just go on this morning for Kansas City, by the way. So
perfect.
really excited. It's one of the things I believe is it's very important for you to know what you're getting yourself into. What's the population look like? What's the demographics? How many companies are there? What do those companies do? If you're a manufacturing person and you're going into Silicon Valley, well, there's not as much manufacturing as there is technical and stuff like that there. So it might be a little bit more uphill climb. You may want to either reconsider the market or reconsider the alignment of your desired skill set in a market based upon what it offers up.
Right. So you can just message us your zip code. Let us know what county you're in. It is easy for us to pull a report and show you what's real, right? What's possible from financing to, the workforce and who your biggest clients could potentially be. I mean, that is a huge deal. What I didn't show them, Bill, is what I had teed up here. Let me share my screen, which is our Impact Robotics. I'm going to bump us off real quick. Just take a look at all of these robots.
Yep.
Because iBoost Talent has sister companies. Bill already mentioned Impact Workforce Solutions in business for 25 years. And now we have Impact Robotics. So we are augmenting labor with automation. Mm-hmm. This takes away the busy work from people doing repetitive tasks. Their talent could be used elsewhere to help grow the company. Mm-hmm. So take a look at these robots. Pretty impressive. To me, that is super impressive that we are in this space.
Yep.
And from what we know, we are the only workforce brand that is doing this. So it's a huge deal. And the fact that we're franchising it now is even more impressive, but needed. So
it's a huge differentiator. No
augmented automation. Yep. I said augmented labor with automation. I think that's what I said.
It's a huge differentiator for sure.
Robots and people. Yes, it's not robots or people. And that's the misconception in the world maybe right now is people think robots are going to replace people. In fact, they're going to improve quality of life.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So, Bill, what is the next steps for people to learn about how to learn more?
Yeah, I would say, in the vein of the fire behind my graphic here, send them a smoke signal. You can reach me on LinkedIn. You can reach me through the iBoost website, iBoostTalent.com. Just reach out and I'll be happy to set some time up, a link to my calendars and all my communications and stuff too. My job is to talk to you, and I love talking about both the staffing industry. It's been all I've done for my entire 66 years, and franchising, because I truly believe that franchising empowers Americans to become the independent forces that everybody's got burning inside of them that way. So let's talk about what you're looking for, and I'll connect it with Michele if you'd like to learn a little bit more about guidance services around your investment portfolio and how you could leverage that.
Yeah, thank you both. I just want to thank you both for your time and energy today. To me, our time is our most precious asset. It's not money, because time we don't get back. So to me, this avenue helps us get that time back so that we can build the future as we intend to, and then get time back to do what we're best at and what we love. So thank you both for joining us today. Yes, great webinar, great Q&A. DM us, reach out, let us know if you want to connect with Michele and Guidant Financial and talk to somebody who's been in it, right? Do your homework. We want to see you doing your homework. We don't award franchises to just anybody. So, Michele, thank you. What is your parting gift or words of wisdom for anyone sitting on the fence of business ownership?
Just, you know what, if you have a little bit of curiosity about owning a business, just talk to somebody about it. Don't worry about the funding initially. Figure out what you want to do. Obviously, iBoost is fantastic, and hearing the information here, it's wonderful. So just there's lots of different opportunity out there for things that you might not be aware of. So just start your research.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, Michele, and thank you everybody who came today. We're so glad that you're here. DM us, ask questions, and visit iBoostTalent.com. Thanks, everybody. Have a blessed day.